because they showed up late for work every day, then I would be describing unemployment as a personal trouble. A personal trouble of that particular individual based on their particular behaviors. So they are then responsible for the fact that they were fired because of what they did, yeah? Biography, see how that's all connected? Okay. Now if I say 90% of all Morgan State University students are unemployed, and it's signifying that there is a larger issue amongst young people being able to gain meaningful employment, and also young people needing meaningful employment while going to school because of the changing economy. Now I'm talking about unemployment being a public issue, because these things are things outside of the control factor of the Morgan State University students, right? And it's more like a societal thing where maybe it's just frowned upon if you're young and you have no experience, which is probably what most of you experience when you go for a job, right? Like, what experience you have? What you mean, what experience I have? Just got out of high school, I'm in college. I need to eat. Like, what's up? When you give me this job, I'm gonna have some experience. But until then, what you want me to do? Like, you know, I'm here, I'm willing, I'm able, I'm down to learn, I'm excited, I'm motivated. But then still sometimes, even though you've done all of what you could do, that's still not enough, because even if you have a degree, sometimes when you apply for a job, even after you've gotten your degree and you have it in your hand and you can show it to the potential employer, they'll still say, well, what experience do you have, right? Which is why we're always pushing internships to y'all, and which is why I be tripping off of your generation when they say things to me like, well, is it paid? No, it's not paid, but it's going to pay you in the long run, because then now you got some lines to put on your resume. You can fill your shit up and say that you actually have experience. And not only that, you also have somebody else that you can call upon to serve as for a letter of recommendation, or to serve as a reference when you apply for another job, saying, yes, this person did work for me, or she worked here, she was awesome, we hate losing her, but if this is a better opportunity for her, we certainly are in support of her application. If you don't have those two things while you're applying for a job, even when you have a degree, likely you're not going to get hired, right? So those outside things are still outside of a large amount of people's control. And so that's when a situation becomes a public issue as opposed to a personal trouble. Yeah? And so I saw that and I was like, no, I gotta make sure I say that, So that's that. All right. So I started with Karl Marx just because it was like one of the videos that I know I could find easily, and I just didn't think you felt like hearing my mouth anymore. But we got almost through it. There's 4 probably more minutes left. But we usually don't even start the conversation with him. I'm gonna go back with Auguste Comte just to say that he was the what? The father of sociology. He's the one who fought for it and all of that good stuff. But still, he himself did not get to do a whole lot of sociological work. Nonetheless, his ideas served as the tenets for which everybody else who came after him was building on. Karl Marx is one of those people, well, really both, I'll say Karl Marx and Emil Durkheim. So the first thing about Karl Marx is he was in Germany, okay, which is relevant. Now, Auguste Comte was where? In France. Okay. Now, Emil Durkheim was also in France. So his ideas pretty much are a continuation of Auguste Comte's. He actually disagreed with Auguste Comte in a lot of ways. But Emil Durkheim is actually a first, official by name sociologist teaching at an academic university is Emil Durkheim. Okay? So while we say Auguste Comte is the father of sociology, that's because his ideas and his philosophies pretty much led everybody in this line of thinking. But then Emil Durkheim was really the first true sociologist, academically trained in sociology, coming out of France. But Karl Marx's ideas certainly do lead up to the foundation for conflict theory. Okay? And that is because Karl Marx was primarily concerned with capitalism. So at this time, the Industrial Revolution is going on. Everything is changing in the world. People see that there's a bunch of increased opportunity economically. See me after class, please. Make sure you get attendance. Economically. And then so people are getting audacious and bold. Then it leads up to the French Revolution. The French Revolution wasn't the only revolution. Other revolutions were happening in other places as well. And that is because now people feel like they have the audacity to challenge the monarchy and the royals because life is changing and other people have these opportunities and we don't. And so people start bucking all over the world. And out of this industrial revolution, because there's new technology, because of the development of the steam engine, and that was a big deal because the steam engine made it was like easier to get than processing the coal to maneuver the trains in order to get produce from one place to the other place. And so because transportation became easier because of the steam engine, because now they didn't have to use coal, they could just use water to power these trains, that means they can get more stuff other places faster. And so now people are thinking about, oh, we can make more money. Like, if we can get more stuff, more places, even faster than before, then we got to produce it faster so that we can get more out, so that we can make more money. And everybody's all excited because this new economic system called capitalism is so promising in terms of your financial prosperity. Karl Marx the whole time is saying, this looks cute, but I see this being catastrophic for society. And it's going to lead to more revolutions. That was ultimately what he was saying. And this is why they typically consider, when they're trying to diss somebody, especially our black leaders in the United States, when they were suppressing Malcolm X and Martin Luther King and, what's his name? Dunbar, the poet, Lawrence Dunbar. Yeah, Lawrence Dunbar and what's the other chick's name? The dancer.
Josephine Baker.
Huh?
Josephine Baker.
And Josephine Baker and all of these people that were our early social activists who were speaking out and rolling their necks against the United States government for the treatment of black people. What they labeled them as is Marxists. Y'all a bunch of Marxists. And so, and that was a diss, that was disrespectful, right? Because then now they were being tried, even Lawrence Dunbar and all of them who moved to France and left the United States and let their citizenship go here to go to other places in Europe. They revoked their citizenship so that they couldn't come back to the United States on the basis that it was treason because they were conspiring with other governments to start a communist revolution. And that's why they called them Marxists, because they associated Karl Marx with communism. And with violence, because Karl Marx, the very last part of every single last one of his writings, saying if y'all don't stop this shit, it's gonna be a revolution. Meaning the people is gonna come in the castle just like they did on the French Revolution and cut your necks off if y'all continue this capitalism thing. And people who are running the government didn't like that because and they actually ostracized him too. They kicked him out of Germany. He had to leave Germany. They put him on some, like, they didn't have prison, so they put him on like an island. He was on like some island for, I don't know, I gotta look it up, but it's either 12 or 22, because I know there's a 2 in it. But it's either 12 years or 22 years he was ostracized to an island where he couldn't leave because the government was saying, you keep trying to incite a riot, sir. You keep trying to make these people buck, but you the only one that's mad to go sit down somewhere, and the government would make him sit down on an island by himself. And that's really where he did a lot of his writing, actually, and that's why there's so much of his writing, because he had a lot of time, okay, a lot of time, all by himself, literally going crazy on an island by himself, but still talking about these ideas. But he didn't like capitalism. He said that in capitalism, people would not be able to realize their truest potential. So why is that? So that is because capitalism creates 2 classes. The haves and the have-nots. That's just what I call it, like, just to put it simply, but you need to know the official words, and I don't know how to spell them, so don't fact check me, okay? The bourgeoisie and the proletariats. I think I'm pretty right with this one at least. Proletariat, close enough, okay? All right, and so the bourgeoisie own the means of production. Now again, like I said when the video was on, that doesn't necessarily just mean money. These are the things, the tools that what you need to make money in the capitalist system. And that's machinery, that's the warehouses, that's the machinery inside the warehouses. So it's a little deeper than money, okay? The proletariats only own their what?
Labor.
Their own labor. That's it, and that's all they will ever own. And that the only reason why that's the only thing that they will ever own is because capitalism is set up to drive up costs, but to decrease expenditures. So even when they get more money, it's not necessarily their goal to give more money to their workers. So Karl Marx called this a subsistence wage. And by that, he means just enough. So when people are talking about living check to check, just living check to check, that's what they're saying. They're saying what Karl Marx said in 1880-something, calling it a subsistence wage. He was saying the same thing. That the way capitalism works, the bourgeoisie want to keep as much of the profit as they can for their own selves. They don't have even a human concern usually for the bourgeoisie, for them to even have their basic needs. So while they're busting their butt making these products that they usually are never going to be able to afford themselves and make money for the bourgeoisie, all they have is pretty much enough to get some bread and to keep a roof over their head, period. So they can't ever get own any more than their own labor, because the capitalist system is not set up for them to, ever. The capitalist system is set up for them to remain workers that are dependent upon the bourgeoisie to provide them with that subsistence wage. And then he says that we all have, both the bourgeoisie and the proletariats have false consciousness in this process. All right, and what he meant by false consciousness is the bourgeoisie think they're great. They think they're great. Like we hear it now. If you turn on CNN, I love sociology, because this man was, like I said, in 1880. And if you turn on CNN right now, you hear the same conversations. It's crazy. It's crazy to me, right? But the bourgeoisie think they're great because they're saying, and on CNN, they say stuff like, and you've heard it, well, we're providing jobs for the market. If it wasn't for us, people wouldn't be able to work. What do you mean? We created more. If you do tax cuts for us, meaning the rich people who have access to be innovative and create businesses, you should cut taxes for us. Because when you cut taxes for us, that helps everybody. Because when you cut taxes for us, we can hire more people are working, and we're doing a great thing for society, right? That's what they say. And that is part of what Karl Marx is saying. That's why the bourgeoisie have false consciousness. Because they fail to even realize how they're actually hurting people, okay? And then the proletariats have false consciousness because they're at least happy with the fact, well, at least I can pay my rent. You know, I couldn't buy that car this month, but at least we had some bread today. You know, it's so serious, like, right?
So in a way they're like complacent, basically?
Yeah, right? So in the process, it's kind of like you being oppressed and you don't even know you're being oppressed. You don't even acknowledge you're being oppressed because you're getting that little paycheck, and that little paycheck helps you do something, and you're appreciative for what it helps you do because you couldn't imagine life with even that little, without that little. You couldn't even imagine life without that little. And so then this is how, because you ask yourself, well, why would they continue to put themselves in that situation? Well, that's because it's false consciousness. Okay? And again, when I learned the theory, I used to always think it was just the proletariats that have false consciousness, but my professors would always say, no, it's the bourgeoisie too, because most of them have no clue about how they're hurting people. They think they're great. They think they're successful. They pat themselves on the back. Okay? But in addition to that, Karl Marx says, in this state of false consciousness, the reason why people, real people, everyday people, humans in general, in all of society, will never meet their greatest potential under capitalism is because we just get stuck in the modus operandus. What does that mean again? We get stuck in the modus operandus of doing whatever we need to do for basic necessities to simply survive, which disenables us to really know who we are as a person and what we're really good at. So for example, somebody could be the next Picasso. Who's Picasso? An artist. I don't know anything more than that, trust me. Unless you're an art major, you can fill this in for now. Yeah. But an artist, right? From back in the day, and supposedly all these hundreds of years later, we talk about them still because they're so great or whatever. If somehow somebody went to a garage, had a Picasso painting, it probably would sell for like $100,000, if not more than that. Right? It is very possible. I don't know art like that, and I ain't gonna never spend no money like that. I don't care where I get the money from. But probably, if not more, it might be millions as far as I know, okay? Now, what if one of us in this room has the potential artistically to be the next Picasso? But we never explore that because we can't really connect no real opportunities to how we're going to eat with our art. But we do know if we go apply for this job at Walmart, we will get a check. You feel me? And so now you get caught up in working at Walmart because you need this basic money to survive. And you might still do your little artwork on the side, but the rest of the world never gets to see it because you don't really have the time to really dedicate towards doing big canvases of your visions. And that also costs money because canvas costs a lot of money. Paint costs money. Them art students, I'll be feeling bad for them. Ooh-wee, I think y'all complaining. Sure, is that canvas and paint? That's expensive as hell. And you gotta do that all the time. Who really is going to invest in that art when they can't necessarily connect it directly to a material gain immediately when you're hungry, right? And so the same thing goes for us right now in real life. Like right now, we have artists. My daughter's a dancer, as y'all, I guess, already know. You probably already know. I'm a dance mom. I'll talk about dancing a lot just because that's my life outside of this life. But a lot of her friends, now that they're juniors, and she's been dancing since she was 2 in this area, so we know all the area dances. They all came up together or whatever. And now they're all talking about college. And I was sitting at their last show, and one of the parents who was sitting next to me, I asked her if she had gotten this thing that I posted on Facebook about different college programs that had dance, and also programs that had dance integrated with other things like physical therapy and stuff like that, because my daughter wants to do physical therapy and dance. And so I said, well, did you see it? You know, just in passing while we were waiting for the next performance to come up. And she was like, yeah, I seen it, but she ain't going to school for dance. And it's confusing to me because I'm like, damn, lady, I know for a fact, and this is me underestimating me, I swear on everything I love before God, I know for a fact I've spent $100,000 on my daughter's fucking legs and feet since she was 2. And that is really an underestimation. That's when I estimate round down and just estimate. If I was to really sit down and really pull bank account statements and cards and all of that stuff out and ask people, all the people I begged for money, how much they gave me and all my GoFundMe pages that I made and all this stuff, I really do believe it probably might approximate more like $200,000 worth of training. I know this woman who actually is way more affluent than me. She was married, so they had 2 incomes in their household, which is necessary to survive. Y'all heard me, right? Okay, because I throw out life facts all the time. 2 incomes in one household is necessary. All that single mama, baby daddy shit, that shit is dead. If y'all don't stop that immediately in our culture, it's not y'all, I'm saying, if y'all don't stop that generational curse, we are doomed. You cannot survive. I make okay money. I don't make Walmart money, don't get me wrong. But I have 1 salary taking care of 6 people, and that shit don't stretch. Period. You cannot have a household with less than $100,000 and be okay. Period. Middle class is not a $30,000 a year job. That's poor. Okay? My rent has been no less than $2,500 a month since I've had children. Okay? Okay, that was just a side. Okay, what was I talking about? But anyway, I know this woman has put at least that, if not more. Because I know last year her daughter went to Italy to a dance program. And I'm saying to myself, I didn't say this to her, but to myself, I'm tripping because why would you, if you just think your daughter looks cute in a tutu and shit, you could take her to the rec and pay $50 a month. Why would you nurture this passion for this art in your child from 2 to 16 and get to the moment to where it can actually pay you back? Because people are recruiting my daughter like she plays football. Like, you know how like they do football players and they come to the high schools and they try to recruit? This is how hard they're going for my daughter. Like, they are fighting for her. Colleges are fighting for her. And already been offered, since she was 15, scholarship money. Why would you do all of that, invest all them hundreds of G's into them legs of your child, get to the point to where she can actually materialize that, and it can pay off for her, like in a different way, pay for college or whatever, and get that $100,000 back in some kind of way, and then use language that would completely deter her from even wanting to dance anymore.
I was just gonna say, it's the same thing as far as like parents not wanting their child to take a career in arts. Because me being an art major, I've definitely been there with my mother, and I had to like prove to her after years that I could actually do something with this. Because I definitely gotta like, look, if I don't feel like you're going nowhere in 2 years, you better go to school to be a nurse or something, because that's not it. So I feel like that kind of just goes with the same avenues that.
Yeah, it's a setup.
That's really how they be though.
That's a setup. That's how they conditioned our people. And they conditioned our people so that our people will continue to have babies to produce workers for capitalism. Do you understand that? When we have children, that is what they're banking on. That little nigga baby. Excuse my French, if y'all want me to sugarcoat shit for you, please let me know. Or if you have a problem, drop my class, because I don't sugarcoat shit. That little nigga baby, that's gonna be one of our workers. The same way that they did when we were on plantations. Do you understand that? Okay. But but that is how capitalism works. That's my point, right? So Marx is saying that people won't realize their greatest potential because what if this is the next Picasso? Whatever that means. Maybe you know who Picasso was or whatever, but you know. What if the work that you would do, though while it may not be worth some kind of monetary value, but the meaning behind your work and the passion that you put into it actually changes the course of the world. Like how some people would suggest that other artists have, especially the Greek and the Roman ones from back in the day, right? And then life continues with this capitalist model, and I'm starting to see this happen. And then even the appreciation for art even decrease. Right? What would a world be without art? This is what Karl Marx is saying. Everything's not about money. This is what Karl Marx is saying. And just because some people are getting it, I get that how that's good in terms of what it's building and developing is a thing. But that thing is going to choke and suppress all of the natural things that who we are humanly. As humans, we should be able to get up and to do what we're passionate about. Like, that's the entire purpose of life. But under capitalism, it just becomes being a part of the machine to generate more money and more income for the bourgeoisie even, not even for the benefit of the whole world. Does that make sense? All right, I think that's enough about, what else did the video say? What kind of notes y'all have from that? I think that was it for now. We talk more about it. Emile Durkheim. I was trying to get into Blackboard. Huh?
That's how you say his name. I won't lie.
Emile. Yes, most people say Emily.
I really did.
That's cute. That's just some black folk shit. Because nowhere in the world have I ever gone and somebody look at that and say Emily, except for at Morgan. So yeah, so you're not alone. All of y'all be saying Emily. It's okay. It's Emile. Like when you speak French, you gotta Emile. You know, it's like the Emile Durkheim. Yeah, you gotta think about where the person's from, and then you gotta figure out how to say it. Yeah, like that.
Because the whole time I was reading it first, I thought it was a woman. Then I read later down in the paragraph, I was like, oh, this is a dude.
Yeah, he's definitely a dude. So, like I said, Emile Durkheim then, so I want to look up the dates here. Let's see. On your, inside the text, it has actual dates of when they were living. Not that I will ever ask you a date of when somebody was born or anything like that. It's not that serious. But I do like looking at the dates to put it into context. So it says Auguste Comte was alive from 1798 to 1857. And then Karl Marx was born in 1818 and died in 1883. And then we have Emile Durkheim, 1858 to 1917. So Emile Durkheim actually was born 1 year after Auguste Comte died. Okay, and so when they talk about him inside the sociology book, they talk about how he added on to what Auguste Comte had been talking about. So Auguste Comte lived his whole life and had a bunch of ideas. People did start to listen. He got a lot of popularity, but he wasn't really able to officially start sociology as an academic discipline. Emil Durkheim is really the one year, he was born 1 year after Auguste Comte died, but during his lifetime is when we get to see sociology explode into its own discipline, and he became the first professor of sociology somewhere in France. So it says Durkheim helped establish sociology as a formal discipline by establishing the first European Department of Sociology at the University of Bordeaux. So you gotta say it like that, Bordeaux. In 1895, and by publishing his Rules of the Sociological Method in 1895. Another important work, The Division of Labor. This doesn't make any sense. Oh. All right, let's see if I could just use this right here. Emil here. So The Division of Labor is one of his works. Do they spell it like L-A-B-O-U-R? O-U-R, yeah, they do. Division of Labor. And so this was a title of one of his books, and one of the things that he was interested in, and so what, in general, the division of labor, what that means is how work is divided in any given society. And so he talks about, oh yeah, they don't go into it that much. Okay, so he talks about how from primitive societies up until what he's considering modern society, so during his time, how the division of labor changed from where everybody did one thing. So if we're talking about like go to a pastoral tribe, that moves from place to place in Africa, right? Like, so go to that place. And he said in that type of society, and that's what he means by primitive, in that type of society, it is very clear who plays what role, right? And typically it would be something like the men and the women had a certain task of things to do that needed to be done for the survival of the village. And so let's say that maybe men would go hunt and bring the food back, and then women would clean the food and then cook it, let's say. It would be pretty clear about who needs to do what in order to make sure that basic necessities were met. And so that's what Durkheim noticed in pre-primitive times. But he's talking about once capitalism hit, because everybody's pretty much talking about how capitalism changed the world, because this is during their reality, it was happening during their time. He said under capitalism though, in modern society, people have very different tasks and you can no longer predict who's doing what, right? So examples of that then become, so he said specialization happened under capitalism, specialization. So what that means is before, let's say, primitive society, you would get your clothes from your mama, because your mama would sit down and sew them, period. And that's where you got your clothes. You don't have to worry about going to Forever 21, Macy's, none of that, because none of that existed. But under capitalism, specialization happened, and people began to specialize in different things. He brings it all the way back to the European times when people like blacksmiths, what do blacksmiths make? What? So that's like iron, yeah? Blacksmith is iron? Okay, and what's the leather people called?
Leatherman?
Who?
I don't think Leatherman, no.
A leatherman, that could be it, right? So that, the fact that we started, and even people had those last names, you know that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they usually had last names that described what their family business was, right? So blacksmith and smith comes out of blacksmith, and so they were blacksmiths. You get that? And that's why they're named. The Schumacher, you ever seen that last name? Schumacher? You ever seen it?
I had a teacher named Miller Smith.
It's like, it's something like this. That's how it's spelled, and that's only because it was German, but that was the shoemakers. And it became a last name, so it's a German last name. A lot of people have that last name, but they were shoemakers, right? And so he said under capitalism is when people became innovative enough to think about how they want to specialize into different things. And so now, as opposed to your mama making cakes right? Restaurants started to pop up where women were choosing to start a restaurant, and you could come to me and I will bake your family a cake too, and you could pay me, and you know, because this is how capitalism works. Okay, we got a business, it's innovative. So because people began to specialize, the expectations about who's supposed to do what then became unclear, and out of that unclearness, this is what he calls chaos, because we don't have expectations that bind us together as strictly as they used to in primitive society. So trust and believe, if you was a child and you were living in that village that I just described, you wasn't going to decide, well, I'm going to go to America and be a model. There was no such thing. You very clearly knew your entire life that it was you're a woman, you're in this village, you will be here to the day that you die, you will get married at this particular time. Up until that time, you will help this family on this farm, okay? And when you get married, y'all both gonna come here and help this family on this farm, and he's gonna do that, and you're gonna do that, period. Nobody questioned that, they just went along with it. And so, in capitalism, people became specialized into different things, which pulled them into different pockets, which then decreased our moral bonds to each other as a society. Because now we're not looking at each other as a group anymore. We're looking at each other as individuals. I make cakes, you want one, you buy it. I'm not thinking about making you a cake for free. You feel me? No, that's not how that works. And so, because of the now, and this is what he calls enemy, out of this inability to expect, to know what to expect about your roles in society because of increasing opportunity under capitalism, the culture becomes unclear. And when the culture becomes unclear, it becomes chaos. This chaos, they're kind of called enemy. So I'm going to say chaos here because that's what he actually calls it, but this is, for me, it means normlessness. And by normlessness, you know what norms are. Like, what are the norms of a particular society? What are the norms? What are the norms at Morgan State University? One of the norms at Morgan State University is you do not address nary a doctor up in nowhere in one of these buildings by their first name. Now, you think that that's a general rule about adults in general, but when I tell you at Morgan State University, that's times 20, they don't play that, okay? You also address doctor, whoever's a doctor, by doctor. Like, I'm not a doctor, don't address me by doctor, because if so, and it doesn't, people do it all the time. It doesn't bother me, and it maybe increases my motivation every now and then to be inspired to actually complete that process. Maybe, doubt it, maybe, I don't know. But if somebody else who is a doctor hears you call me a doctor, oh, they're gonna be pissed. They're gonna write letters about it. It's that serious. That's a norm here. I had to explain that to somebody the other day, because she was like, yeah, so-and-so. She called the lady by her first name. When she was talking to me, a student, and she's a little older. She might be 24 or 25. She acting like she thought she was grown. And I was like, ma'am, let me tell you something. Please never call that woman by her first name, nary ever again in your life. Not in this building. Because if she heard you, she would never let you live that down. For the whole 4 years you were here, no lie. They be like, that little girl called me by my name, my first name, like she thinks she all that. Okay? So that's a norm here, right? Enemy is about normlessness. When we're not even clear anymore about what the norms are because of so much division, because of so much confusion, right? And that's what Durkheim was talking about for the most part, and he expands from there. One of the other things I definitely need you to know right away, and we will keep talking about these people, but I just want to try to give you little overviews, is he did his phenomenal work, like the one that everybody still talks about today, the one that really established him as a great thinker. It was called Suicide. And in Suicide is where he really discusses the concept of enemy, and he talks about how people who are less bounded to the societies around them have higher rates of suicide. And by less bounded, he meant people who are not actively involved in church, people who are not actively going to school or some kind of institution, people who are not signing up for the PTA, people who always remain isolated into themselves, feel less connection and responsibility to society, and therefore increases their chances to commit suicide because they don't really feel like their absence would impact anything or anyone. But even people who might have a mental issue where they want to commit suicide, being very connected to the social structures around you, participating in church, coming to school, being in the SGA, and just being active and seen and involved in those groups would certainly decrease a person from opportunity to actually commit suicide, because they'll feel more connected to what would happen after the fact. What would happen to my family after I do that? What would happen to this group after? What will happen to this community? They look up to me, right? And so that's where he explores the concept of anomy, which is normlessness.